Good late Thursday or like Friday. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving you a look at that Doppler technology across the region. You see the temperature on there, the wind direction. You don't see too much here toward our area with the moisture. That's something we want to see, quite honestly. Luckily, we haven't any severe weather or anything like that, but we do have this boundary coming on through. You see the shifting of the winds, and you see some rain up toward Israel. Eufaula, Alabama, give or take, but nothing there that's too noteworthy. We again need more precip. We're gonna have a little bit of this get back into the area. We had some rain here over the last 12 hours. It'll say here on the rainfall estimates, but that kind of cut on off here as we moved off toward the east. And around Perry, they got around an inch of rain. That's pretty impressive, you know, considering some of the other spots in our area. Some spots in southern Taylor County even over 2 inches. Definitely need the rain, but around Stark here, it didn't really happen. Maybe, you know, some light rain at, you know, a moment here or there, but not what we needed. Unfortunately, may still have a chance for a little bit more precip, but we have that drought continuing. Now, the weather is going to be really nice, though, for Christmas, so at least that's some good news here as we look in terms of the forecast. I mean, we need rain, but you don't want to, you know, bad weather Christmas there, and it's looking like we're going to have some pretty nice conditions there in terms of the weather as we look toward that. So, again, we're just going to continue to give you guys the very latest here on all of this. I know we'll look out here right now to North Carolina. I know you see there, West Virginia, we have some pretty nasty weather there. We had even, you know, a tornado warning north of St. Louis, another one in parts of northern, you know, western Kentucky and southern Illinois on that Thursday. As we look at this picture, I do want to, you know, send my thoughts and prayers out there to the family of a former NASCAR driver, Greg Biffle, who was killed in a very tragic plane crash there. Him and Minnie and his family there, a terrible tragedy on that Thursday in North Carolina. He had helped in Hurricane Helene relief efforts there. I know, you know, the aftermath of the storm so bad in western North Carolina now, passing away there in a plane crash that he was headed down based on media reports for vacation, you know. So just heading down toward Florida and the Bahamas and the like. So just an awful tragedy there. As you see, though, looking back on the weather map here, you see cold air coming into what areas like St. Louis there at this moment. You even see there's some wind involved in that. You see one of the ASOS stations there giving a gust over 50 miles an hour recently. As I put the wind chill values on, you see some really nasty lower readings there. Even some snow accident out of Illinois right now. More so in Indiana, though, as you look there in the parts of eastern Indiana, Fort Wayne to about Indianapolis, give or take. I know you see in parts of, it looks like Wisconsin there, Green Bay, get into some snow. Now, another story, another Jacksonville Jaguars going to be playing in Denver on Sunday, hoping they get to win. The weather looks pretty good for the game itself. It'll be in the afternoon there. But, you know, as you're looking out toward, the, you know, the mountain time zone. But there is something we need to watch for the Denver area here. You see the geography, the topography here. There's concerns west of Denver on your Friday ahead that we could just have extraordinarily high wind gusts here that could lead to some significant fire dangers. In fact, a particularly dangerous situation, a red flag warning in play. Never really had anything like that before, I don't think, in toward parts of Colorado from what I've seen in media reports and the like. It's something you can get in Southern California sometimes. And right there in some of those higher elevations, we could have some big wildfire concerns here. You know, just if everybody's, you know, practicing a wildfire safety, then, you know, maybe we don't get the wildfires to form, but if we get, you know, them to form, there's going to be, you know, and or, you know, it gets started, ignited there, and the like. Then you have winds that could be over 100 miles an hour there west of Boulder, Colorado on your Friday. Really, you know, rapid wildfire spreads a possibility, a particularly dangerous situation. In fact, let me just go ahead and pull up the graphic here that the Weather Service in the Denver Boulder area put out on the website. I would pull on the model guidance, but I think if I just pull the graphic in, you know, these are the temperatures, you know, if you kind of know about, there is, you know, higher elevation, cooler conditions and the like there, but as you see the variation, very stark one there. But let's pull this up. This is important here. This is from the Weather Service in a Denver Boulder area there in Colorado. This is a particularly dangerous situation for the foothills and along Colorado Highway 93 westward. A gust of 85 to 100 miles an hour possible from Highway 93 westward there as we're looking toward this Friday, today, later today. Sustained winds in that same corridor of 45 to 55 miles an hour, and the relative humidity 8 to 20%. There's uncertainty if the strongest winds will make it past Highway 93 and US 36. But the point about this is we have concerns for wildfire danger next year around here because we're so dry, but it'd really be hard to ever imagine a situation anything like what they're going to have out there with these type of winds and this ripe of conditions here for wildfire concerning high elevations. As they're saying here, Friday will feature what they call a particularly dangerous situation regarding the potential for rapid wildfire spread. This is due to very high winds combined with an extremely dry air mass and near record temperatures. Higher temperatures are in the highest threat for these conditions will exist in the foothills of Boulder, and that's where University of Colorado is there, city of Boulder itself, and in northern Jefferson County there as well, and down to 55, 100 feet there as we're looking at the elevation immediately next to those foothills. And then outside of that, the wind speeds will likely be lighter. There will be more uncertainty, as they're saying, as weather to strong gusty winds develop. However, that still spells critical fire conditions for much of the I-25 corridor there in Colorado by later in the day, as well as the remainder of the foothills. And folks are told to be ready to take swift action and have a go kit there, ready, so the new fire start and evacuations are ordered. I know information from the National Weather Service out there. High wind warning, you see that there. You see red flag warning. There's all sorts of information being put out there by the Weather Service in the Denver Boulder area. And then here's a look at wildfire safety. They put this on the website as well, that wildfire growth can be terrifyingly sudden and deadly, especially, winds. We don't have winds like that around here unless it's a hurricane, and we don't have terrain like that. We had all those wildfires in East Tennessee there going back, in terms of, that impacting different communities going back, several years now. Well, this is a high terrain area, and this is an area where things can just kind of go down a mountainside, something like that. They're really fast with 100-mile-an-hour winds and dry conditions. So, I know there's not much time now. It's the middle of the night, but early in the morning, if possible, if it's not already too windy, or if you can, just try to, in general, it's supply the area too in future, because we could have these threats over the next few months. Not to that level with those type of winds, and we don't have that type of terrain. And it'd be hard to have humidity quite that low, but it could still be really bad. But not. This is like potentially, Southern California type bad, where they had back in January, they had catastrophic wildfires there toward the coast areas. So, but in general, you just want to clear brush away from your home to create defensible space. Use fire-resistant landscaping, know your potential evacuation routes, and have an emergency supply kit ready to go. So, that's out there around areas around Boulder and Colorado. This could be, some of the worst wildfire conditions. We've had bad wildfires over decades. I know Colorado Springs TV market going back, I think, 2012, when I was first starting out at FSU. I remember seeing all that coverage, and just, it's crazy to think about everything that could happen with these wildfires here. And, it's something they've had before. Out there in the word Colorado, but this is about as bad as it gets with these type of volatile conditions. As we're tracking things, and now you just got to be really, really prepared, because this could be, just taking that escalation so quickly, so rapidly there, out there in Colorado on that Friday. So again, there's something to really be on the lookout for, as wildfires can, rapidly evolve there. Again, this was Denver, Boulder, Colorado, saying that it's going to be a particularly dangerous situation. There. So folks really have to heed this as we're, looking there, just the overall conditions, about as bad as they get for wildfires is, for that short period of time, things could be about as bad as they could ever get anywhere in the country. So, we just have to be really, really careful with this. Never again, from what I've seen on social media and media reports, never really had a particularly dangerous situation, wildfire risk there, in Colorado. And this could be something that's really bad, rapid, spread there. Just really be paying attention. If you have family and friends there, make sure they're ready to go in case, you see around Jamestown, Colorado, for instance, right there in the bullseye of that. Potentially, though, you see other spots with, peak wind gusts still, in that vicinity, and other areas could still be pretty bad. Estes Park, 80 to 85 miles an hour, 85 to 90 around Allen's Park. It looks like areas there around Nederland there, if I'm pronouncing that right, 85 to 90 miles an hour. Boulders to hurricane force, lines to hurricane force, Blackhawk, Colorado about hurricane force, Broomfield a little less, but over 50 miles an hour, Golden 60 to 65, Evergreen 60 to 65 miles an hour. So yeah, this is not something to play around with there. The end of word Colorado, make sure your family and friends, are watching this, because these are just extraordinarily fast winds out that way. So as we jump back over to the temperature map, though, out there, you see the contrast, but it's still pretty warm for them, as they were alluding to in some of that information there. I know, and they're not having a precip either, so not a good deal at all there. You see in Canada, though, it is very cold. Negative readings there on the thermometer right now. As we look up that way, you see it's more rain, though, as we look further east in the northeast right now. West Virginia's having a lot of wind. We've had a lot of problems in Washington State here. Let's just flip back to the Pacific Northwest. There's been a lot of weather issues out there. So that's not something you want to see, obviously, as we're looking at things and as we're tracking things with river flooding, winds, a lot of power outages. Pacific Northwest looking back earlier this week as well. So I know as you look toward our area, you see a few areas of rain right now, not enough, but a little bit of light, maybe occasionally a moderate area of moisture in Alachua County, but it's in the low to mid 70s right now. As we're looking at things and tracking things, you also see some stuff toward Quitman County, a little bit heavier. I look at rotation tracker, there's not much there, but let me just go ahead and pull something up here in our other system just to make sure nothing's, a little bit stronger. There's a wind shift in here, as you'll see in just a second. We're going to switch to the other computer source, and then we'll go ahead and see here that wind shift. You see the red winds going away from the Fort Rucker radar. So Fort Rucker and Fort Novosel radars down here. So you have the winds going away from that radar site, and you have winds, that are headed toward the radar site here. In theory, I know, as you're looking at things and as you're tracking them. So again, that's something to kind of bear in mind, as we're looking at that scenario there. But they're not any type of gate-to-gate couplets that's isn't really strong enough convection probably to produce anything tornadic we did years ago. Moody Air Force Base area, give or take, around about Austin anyway. We had a tornado with no observed cloud of lightning. Didn't really have much, if any, lightning on some of these storms, like in Kentucky and Illinois there on that Thursday, but still had a tornado warning. So you just have to be careful as we look here toward north central Florida. You see some moisture, maybe a little bit heavier when we look at the high resolution radar for a few moments there. Maybe we want to know orange heights right now here, 245, 250 in the morning. If you're watching live, there southeast of Gainesville itself, really. A little bit of yellow showing up. You see a little bit in Gilchrist County. You haven't had much on the radar in mine to track here, so that's why I'm just kind of zooming in on some of this. You see south of Columbia as we look at things and as we track them. It's just always important to kind of keep an eye on things there. When we're in the country right now, over land is in Oregon. You see some of the different radar technology, and there's a flash flood warning there. There's a flash flooding situation from heavy rain and snow melt on a log jam, and that could fail suddenly there in Jefferson County in Oregon. So we don't have these too often in Oregon, but there's one right now out that in that direction. So, but as we get back to our drought picture, I know our Florida drought update came out on Thursday. As we were looking at things and as we were tracking things here, uh, as we look at the overall situation, I'm gonna go ahead. I'll pull up our graphics here, and you'll kind of see what I'm talking about, and you can kind of tell that we have a moderate drought on Stark Lake City. Not as bad as it's been at points, but we need more rain. Tallahassee a little worse. I mean, this did not include a Thursday rain. I know Perry, some of that area got helped out a little bit. That may be reflected here, in our update coming up next week. But a lot of these areas aren't going to have too much of a change. We didn't really have anything around Stark. Tallahassee there, you can see the extreme drought. I mean, we had some rain on that Thursday, but I mean, it really could have been a lot more. We really needed more. As we look there toward Leon County and the Tallahassee area, I'll kind of say that to you on the rainfall estimates, because this only goes, it doesn't include a Thursday rain, it didn't include any, if we had rain earlier on. This only goes through Tuesday, the way they do these early in the day, because they have to do the evaluations. But we did get, as I'll see on the estimator here, I'll kind of move that up on the screen here, so you'll see what I'm talking about. You see around 6/10 of an inch around Tallahassee, Wakena, Woodville there, 8/10 of an inch. So again, that kind of tells that story. And we're giving you guys the very latest on the situation. I know McCulloch County, you can see over an inch there. Franklin County, a couple inches. So they need the precip. Some areas aren't getting it. I'm looking up the Moody radar because it's a little easier to see when versus getting some interference. That's somewhere in Taylor County there as well. But as you look toward the east, I mean, you don't want to disrupt your plans, sure, but we need more rain than this. I mean, a few spots, and Bradford actually got a good little bit on that, maybe overestimating a little bit, to be quite honest. I'm surprised it's showing that much in a few little spots there in toward Bradford, but still, it's good that we had some rain. I'm backing this up some, but it didn't go all the way back. But I know as we kind of look at things here, as we track them, at least we got some precip here in some of these areas. As I'm looking for different modes here, seeing some of that precip hit and miss, but just, that's the problem. I need more of that in North Central Florida. We're going to have problems in the spring. When we get that new growth here that we're going to have, then it's going to be too dry still. We have the soil moisture, the values are already so low with the, moisture levels, and that kind of, helps to keep things dry, if that makes sense. In a way, it kind of builds on itself, makes it worse and worse unless you get a big drought busting event. We had some help, but it's not enough. I mean, it's held us over, to not have a burn ban at points, which, makes sense, but eventually, we're going to get drier and drier and have bigger problems, and even short-term issues. I mean, we're not out of the woods by any stretch. It's just short-term relief with that, but looking very dry the next 7 days, maybe even longer. Maybe on the 30th, DFS was showing some moisture come in. We'll see. Obviously, this time of year you have to always watch out for a strong storm risk, but we haven't seen, and I'm probably going to jinx it by saying this, granted, we need rain. But we don't need tornadoes at all or anything like that. We have not had hardly any severe weather risk here come to fruition, at least. We've had little risk that have popped up marginally here and there. We haven't had anything in a while that's really been that big of a deal, for an extended period, maybe in this year or there, a storyline. We had some of that stuff in Georgia going back, I guess about a month ago or so, maybe it's a little bit longer than that ago now, but I guess when you look back at things with like the reports around Bainbridge, it's been very calm though weather-wise. I know I don't have any graphic in here for it, but 5 years ago was a different story for sure. Then on that Christmas Eve we had that tornado there on State Road 100 on that Christmas Eve night, and we were tracking the severe weather alerts with that action there. That F1 tornado though. I guess just pull up the scale real quick when I'm talking about this. The anniversary is coming up, here, but it's looking to be a calm and nice Christmas, as I alluded to in the description with the local weather here, at least, even though I do talk about, some concerns with the drought and the like here. Still, really, I mean, as you look at that, we don't want severe weather. We need the rain. Probably, gotta be careful saying this, but it probably can't be as bad as it can be in some of these highest wildfire prone areas like in Colorado and Southern California. When there's, and even Northern California over the years, elevation, that presents a whole nother issue we don't have to deal with around here, but we still could have big problems. I mean, we've had problems in the late 90s. We had a bad problem 1985 around Flagler County. They're doing better with the drought than most here in our area now, but you look at this, we don't want severe weather. We don't want a tornado like we had 5 years ago on Christmas Eve. Not looking to see anything like that here, at least until, after Christmas. I mean, maybe around the 30th we have some type of strong storm risk, but we're really getting out there with that. I'm just saying that because of the holiday, and some of you guys maybe kind of taking a break maybe from watching on the internet here and the like for a few days or something. But it's your rainfall forecast next 7 days. Now, we are going to have a little bit of this trying to make it its way in here next several hours, but next 7 days looks pretty light. If anything, in terms of rain that falls, you may not even get anything towards some of your different, backyards here. We did get some on that Thursday. Some areas got a good bit. Still wasn't enough really overall for anybody, but I know we'll be on our holiday schedule. Will be assuming we don't have to come in and cut in at different times. We'll be on late Tuesday next week, so that'll be the 23rd and the 24th. And then, late Tuesday, early Wednesday, then we'll be off for a Christmas night into Friday. And then we'll be on the next Tuesday there. That'll be your 30th there, into the 31st, late Tuesday the 30th and early Wednesday the 31st. And we'll be off there, New Year's night into that Friday. So one update each week, the next 2 weeks, in that holiday schedule, and we'll have late Tuesday, early Wednesday updates. No late Thursday, early Friday. I know last year I think we did it late Monday, early Tuesday those weeks because it was a day earlier with in the week sequence with the holidays. But we'll just do late Tuesday, early Wednesday the next 2 weeks. That's the plan right now anyway. Of course, if weather changes things, we can always come in more, cut in more, come on more. You get what I mean. Anyway, cloudweather.com/radar gives you an interactive look at things. We have a rip current risk. I know Wilson from Tallahassee was watching that. I know the weather today, maybe not as much, but these days here we'll be, seeing better weather. Just be careful at the beaches, of course, as we're looking. We also have fog potential at times around, so be careful with that. Just be careful. Some folks that are tourists coming in might be unfamiliar with the roads. So just gotta be careful when we have fog around anyway, but that adds another layer to it. Slow down and give yourself extra time to reach your destination. Make sure your vehicle is as visible as possible to other vehicles by using your low beam headlights, and leave plenty of room between you and the vehicle in front of you. So again, we're just gonna go ahead and be watching that. It'll be hit and miss here at times. This morning maybe, but then other mornings in a pattern when you have warmer temperatures. Sometimes around New Year's we have that problem. It depends. I mean, we're not sure if it'll cool down then or not at this point, but you can have that problem here sometimes when you have those warmer than normal lows. You have fireworks mixing, that could be an issue as we look ahead. As we bounce back real quick, I do want to say there's a small chance of thunderstorms in South Florida on that Friday there. On that Friday, let me go ahead and pull that up real quick. As we look, you can see some of that there on this mode. I know you see Miami. I know Fernando Mendoza from Miami there. Indiana quarterback. Congratulations to him on winning the Heisman there. What a great speech he gave last Saturday. Speaking of last weekend, high school football in Florida, you saw Miami on there. That's where Reigns, the Jacksonville Reigns squad, won a state championship. Congratulations to them. Also, I know Bulls went down there. They didn't quite get the job done, but they tried hard. They went to that state title game, the Jacksonville Bulls, and their classification the same as Bradford, just 2A for them. They were the runner-up, and then you also have, as you look at things, another thing I gotta mention, not for our very own area, but what an incredible game by Lake Mary there at the end, down by 8 points there with, 15 seconds left, and they won the game by 1 against Vero Beach. Maybe the greatest state title game in the history of state title games in Florida high school football, at least in terms of that finish. Lake Mary there, they've had an interesting year with the tornado at the TV station earlier this year down there. As we kind of zoom in a little bit more here on the maps, see all those different communities, and then we kind of zoom around, and there is Lake Mary, of course, and they had that tornado, had the TV station, they had their Little League team win the title last year in baseball in 2024, and now they had their In the highest classification in Florida, their Lake Mary squad win a state title, and a Hail Mary by the quarterback there, Noah Grubbs, who's going to Notre Dame. And then the guy that caught it, they kind of had a lateral situation, and got in the end zone. That made it after a safety that made it a tie game. The extra point won it. Safety. The other team was it was starting to rain some there heavier, and the team was trying to do some different things, and they got a safety to try to maybe make it easier, and it ended up not working out for them. A crazy finish there. Congratulations to Lake Mary. Also for our Georgia County, we have two teams that won the state title in Worth County. So Sylvester there, they won the state title in high school football. That was a great thing for them. Worth County winning that state title earlier this week up in Atlanta in the Georgia high school football playoffs, and in their classification. And you also have Thomas County. It was Thomas County Central. They won the state title. They dominated against Gainesville, Georgia, 62-21 in 5A. They won that this Wednesday night. So as I moved the map down there, you saw Worth County and Sylvester. There's Thomas County, the Thomas area. Congratulations to Thomas County Central on winning their high school football state championship. So we had 3 teams, if my math's right here, if I'm not missing anybody in the FH. SAA / the Georgia High School Football Playoffs, win the state titles there. That was, of course, Rains or Jacksonville Rains, Worth County, Sylvester, and Thomas County Central. Congratulations to all 3. And Bowles, a state runner-up. They tried really hard, but came up a little bit short there. As we're looking at things and as we're tracking things there, just so impressive, these teams. But, everybody trying really hard here, obviously. As we're looking and as we're tracking things, as we're giving you guys the latest in regards to all that. You see some of that precip a little bit there in Alachua County and the likes. Just kind of important to be touching on all those different topics there. As we look at some of our METARs, not seeing too much pop up here. Again, we're talking about fog safety, but let's go ahead and we'll just get a 7-day now. And we're always watching things for our 62 counties, but in our area. I'll pop that map up first really fast so you remind you of those, but we'll go ahead and kind of get in that 7-day here. You can see, I know times we'll be watching wind here in some of our areas. When things are a little bit breezier, that makes things cooler, obviously. And then you see there on that Saturday, it's going to be kind of chilly. I believe it Rains is having their parade Saturday morning to celebrate that state title. And it'll be chilly for that. So make sure you're bundled up there. And those folks, if you're going to that there or Jacksonville, 37 degrees. Sunday there, nice conditions. As we're looking there, warming up some. I mean, it's still pretty chill in the morning when you're heading out. So maybe early at Sunday school, something like that. It'll be pretty chilly, but there. But you see, warming up in the 70s. That Jags game later on TV. You'll be watching that maybe at 4 or 5 over on Fox. Not all the stations in our area that we cover will be showing that game. Some of them be showing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game instead against Carolina. I know that's for the division lead, but those teams have not been nearly successful this year, the Jags and the Broncos. I know we may have to watch out. I don't know exactly, let me check something out in the wind direction real quick in Denver before I say this, because when we talked about that wildfire concern in their stadium there, let me just get my bearings because I'm not that familiar with Denver, honestly. It's not some, location that we talk about here on the air with that much. I want to see wind direction because I'm curious about something. If there's ending up being a wildfire, lingering smoke risk, even if the worst of the fire conditions are over. I'm just going to check something real quick in my information here. So the winds, they're not too strong then. I just want to kind of see the idea of the direction though. So out of the Northeast, so maybe, with topography, I'm hoping that, if there are wildfires there, we hope there's not. You hope that smoke didn't linger in for that game there in Colorado on Sunday. But this is our local forecast that we're showing you here, so let's kind of focus on that. There still are a few more Christmas parades, I think, this weekend. So just be, careful this Saturday morning or something. Be careful with the cool conditions and the like as we're looking at that and as we're tracking them. Be mindful of all that, obviously, as we give you guys the very latest on the overall weather information. I know we're getting a little bit of a downpour right now if you're watching live in the night and turning me on around Keystone now. So let me go ahead and just pop that up real quick. You see there in southeastern Bradford and southwestern Clay counties, we have some heavy downpour accident there right around, it looks like, as I did my street level map in State Road 21. So, we're right there, not too far away from the Melrose region there as well. So just something to kind of be mindful of there for sure as we're looking at things and as we're tracking them. I know we're kind of warming up some Sunday there. Monday, as you look ahead next week, maybe a small chance of some rain here or there, 10%. Monday, Tuesday. And looking pretty nice weather-wise for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I hope you guys have a Merry Christmas, a Happy Holidays. I know we'll be back late Tuesday, another update. Late Tuesday and early Wednesday. That's, what we're going to have late Tuesday, early Wednesday updates, not the Thursday into Friday updates next 2 weeks there. That's the plan here. But that's kind of if you look at things, you see that above average temperatures as we look at things and as we track them. So, again, just always important to kind of be watching here weather-wise with things here, meteorology, meteorologically. Just always important to kind of give you a synopsis on what's going on here. And this should help you guys out some. Again, a little bit chilly on that Saturday here and the like as we look at things, as we track things. I know one more point about that Jaguars game out in Colorado real quick. I'm going to jump on over here to another map. Bear with me, I know you see a little bit of thunderstorm risk in Wyoming, which is kind of intriguing on that map there on this Friday. A weird pattern there for sure. You see the snow there in that area right now. Again, we're really concerned about that wildfire risk, but that big game on Sunday there, the Broncos and the Jaguars there, Kevin Kugler and Daryl Johnston will have the call on that right now. Not expected to be televised in Tallahassee or Albany or Orlando. Jacksonville, Gainesville, and Savannah will be showing it, but looking like, our area, not that many stations will be showing that. I know Miami scheduled to show it since they don't want to compete with the Dolphins game. That's at 1 o'clock. I know that Dolphins game there not meaning anything really, but it is a home game. And then, it's a situation where a lot of folks will be seeing it further out in the country, like around Denver and the like, in several states. And not just that. I mean, broad brushes, I'm in Kansas City and Boise, Idaho, and Billings, Montana. So it's interesting. Only a few stations going to get it for the Jags, but many for the Broncos and over national interest. So, Tampa, I obviously get the Tampa game, but in Orlando, Tallahassee, Panama City, they're all getting, that Tampa game there as well. And then I know Albany, I guess it's going to be Sunday Atlanta game against Arizona. Another one of those games that doesn't mean anything there in terms of the playoff standings. It wouldn't look like playoff picture. It wouldn't seem anyway. But, Tampa, Carolina does. But some of our viewers will be watching that game. That's up in Charlotte there. Chris Myers and Mark Slareth all be on the call for that, and the weather, up there for that game around Charlotte on that Sunday. Looking to be pretty nice. I know out in Denver, again, weather-wise, it's not going to be too bad. The wind shouldn't be too bad there in Denver itself on that Sunday. We're expecting a high in Denver area there. In the Denver area, we're expecting the high to get to about 58 degrees, which is pretty nice for Denver this time of year, mostly sunny and the like. So I know there could be, really bad winds the other day, out to the west, and still gusts about tropical storm force in Denver, even blowing dust maybe. That's according to the service. So, even if it's not 100-mile-an-hour winds like we're, seeing a forecast there on Boulder and the higher elevations, we're talking about gusts down to 40. Not luckily they're not having to play on this Friday, but uh, just from that meteorological standpoint, nothing to do with the game on Sunday. This could be a real big story, national story if it gets, wildfire formation out here. We sure hope not, in these windy, corridors here with the higher elevation, because that could be, a lot of houses could really have problems fast. A lot of folks could be in real trouble here in less than a week before Christmas. Gotta really be careful on this Friday with those extreme winds out there in Colorado. As we look local here, and just kind of looking at things here. A little bit of wind showing up, I noticed. Southeast Alabama on this. Let me switch this out of winter mode, but seeing what they're calling squalls. I mean, that's 27 knots there just west of Dothan there. I know. Let me look at that on the other mode. I'm a little surprised it's showing up like that. As we look and as we track things, I know. You can kind of see what we're dealing with there. Some of that's going to be trying to get its way in our area there. You see some of it already around Cuthbert and in Randolph County. Could have gusts to maybe 25, 30 within that, but shouldn't be anything more than that. So that's good news. I mean, we had some, hit or miss tornado warning that I alluded to, we had one in North Alabama as well on that Thursday. We're not expecting that around here at this point in time. We'll watch to make sure. Again, not really concerned about that. We're kind of lacking some of the necessary parameters for that. You don't see much instability. Supercell composites more off to the south. I mean, not getting overlapping of that, which is some good news. So, a little bit cool air coming in, as we're looking. I mean, really a lot of cool air for Friday night into Saturday, but, that's frost for some rural counties further out, but, it's going to be a fast bounce back. This is not as big of a cold snap as some of the others we've been seeing. So that is the good news here, obviously. Again, we'll be back on late Tuesday, early Wednesday as we're looking at things and tracking things. Sure, you still need a jacket. Even, some of these mornings when you have about 50 out there, still need a jacket, but it's not the same type of scenario. So that's kind of the storyline there. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thomas there on YouTube and the watching there in the comments there. I appreciate everybody watching on all the different platforms to keep you guys advised here. With the latest weather updates. Thanks for tuning in. I know we're always on late with these because, late at night we can get the latest model guidance to give you the very latest here. So that's going to do it for now. Stay safe with that travel, maybe for the holidays and the like. Be back late Tuesday or late Wednesday with more unless we need to pop back in sooner. And we'll be watching the wind, danger in Colorado, that red flag warning, the wildfire risk, fire weather to watch types conditions out there. So got to be monitoring that. But locally here, weather's not looking too bad for the holidays. As we're looking at things, we do have some drought, those I've alluded to, but just trying to enjoy things here. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and we'll be back here again, next week, late Tuesday, early Wednesday, unless we need to pop back in earlier. Again, stay safe.